All right, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. It is good to be here, alive and healthy for another week, and to count all of our blessings here in the middle of what I think are some very challenging times. And so I'm going to talk today for a few moments about the Supreme Court hearings and Indigenous Peoples Day, folks. AKA formerly known as Columbus Day in many circles. I'm also going to talk about political civility and why I think political civility is important, but does not necessarily equate to political neutrality. So let's talk about what is going on in the world. There's always something going on, and so I want to pop in right away. So first of all, we are in the middle of another contentious Supreme Court hearing. Another time. Hey, Shalala, how are you? Another time that we are trying to figure out what direction this country is going to go. And I want to say a word about civility because I think it is very important that we separate people from policies. All right. I think it's very important that we separate people from policies. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that Amy Coney Barrett is right now basically up for the seat, and for all intents and purposes, she will be confirmed, right? The Democrats really don't have any power to stop her. And a lot of people are using this as a way to say that the Republicans are just about power, they're hypocritical, etc., which I believe to be true in many ways. But I'm going to be frank with you. This may be a very unpopular opinion, but I probably, if I were in the Republican seat, would probably do the same thing. Now, I know this sounds crazy. I know that there is precedent here that after July in an election year, this has really not been done before. And that obviously they blocked President Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland, who was a lot more centrist than the folks that the Republicans have put up. I get all that, and it's right. But I will tell you that in our very divided political climate, if I were in the situation where I was the president, I probably would push forward this nomination as well. Why? Because I could, and because it represents a once-in-a-lifetime situation. Whether it's right or wrong is a whole other story, but in politics, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And we have to all recognize that people are moving to engage their power where they can. And so, as the old saying, let me get ebonically hip-hop speaking here for a second, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? The truth is that this is the game, and you can hate the player or you can hate the game. I ain't really feeling the player very much. As you know, I'm not a huge fan of the player, if you will, our current president. But the truth is, I probably in that situation would do the same thing. Now, that's the thing. So here's the deal. Amy Coney Barrett. Is she a bad person? Is she someone that's going to destroy the legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? I think, truthfully, those are two separate questions. I think that definitely she probably will, in many ways, challenge and erase some of the legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. However, I don't think personally that she's a bad person, right? I think one of the things that I've seen is sort of this attack on religion that, excuse me, I got a cramp in my leg. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry. That is so weird. Oh my goodness. I bike and I run. I ran 3 miles today and I bike 12 miles. And that's caught a major cramp in my leg. And so right oh my gosh, right live on the air. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Maybe that was something I shouldn't have said, like when the fly landed on Mike Pence's head, when he shouldn't have said what he was saying. Maybe that was for me too. Oh my gosh, that hurt. Wow, that's never happened before, folks. Never happened before. Anyway, let me see if I can continue here. My gosh, this is what happens when you are trying to push yourself physically, and it just is what happens. So anyway, so what I was going to say is about the religious question. I really don't like attacks on people's religion. I really don't. I think, and the funny thing is, Republicans are using this as a platform piece, but the Democrats have not really done it very heavily around this time for her. There's not a lot there to attack for her, except for what you would think about her religion and that sort of thing. She's no Brett Kavanaugh in that way. You're not going to have people coming and talking about she sexually harassed them, these drunken parties. That's not going to happen. What is problematic with her, I think, in this nomination has more to do with President Trump's litmus test for her than it does necessarily do with what kind of person she is. As you've looked at the people who've talked about who she has been in all these years, by the way, she's a professor at Notre Dame, went to high school across the street from Notre Dame, so go South Bend, St. Joe, and the Fighting Irish. But I recognize that the major challenges with her nomination are really going to be around the question of what President Trump put as a litmus test. And what did he say? He goes, I want someone who's going to overturn Obamacare. I haven't looked at these comments. I'm sure you guys are cracking up about my leg cramp thing. I'm going to pull the comments in a second. Let me finish my point, but I'm sure anybody who's here is having a field day because I think it's hilarious. They're going to get rid of Obamacare, right? Number one. Number two, get rid of Roe v. Wade. Number three, President Trump wants someone who is, if there is a challenge with this upcoming election, is going to side in his favor. So for me, those are the major challenges to her nomination. I want to speak specifically about Obamacare because the Affordable Care Act is such a critical piece of legislation that anyone that would come in with a predisposition to get rid of it, I think there's a problem with that. Now, it doesn't mean that she will, by the way. One thing that happens with Supreme Court justices, and you saw this with Justice Roberts, is that they don't necessarily all the time go in line with their party positions. So there is hope that people rise to the occasion in the job at various times, depending on what you see. Obviously, people's judicial records and their writings are key indicators of how they will proceed, but this is not a guarantee. Justice Roberts actually was a major defender of Obamacare in that he created this notion that Obamacare was a tax and therefore could actually go forward. So here's the truth. When it comes to the healthcare plan, what is happening right now, you got to think about this when it comes to COVID-19. The president's healthcare plan, President Obama's healthcare plan, allowed people to stay on their parents' insurance until they were the age of 26. It put forth an insurance mandate across the country. It stopped insurance companies from discriminating against pre-existing conditions, and it opened up the cap and stopped insurance companies from putting a cap on a lifetime of benefits. So if you had some serious ailment and you needed care for years, there was a cap on that financially. Well, Obamacare gets rid of all those things, and so really expands health care for people. Well, what do you think about this? COVID-19 is a pre-existing condition. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, and we have people with a pre-existing condition of COVID-19, which could potentially, if Obamacare is repealed, could then honestly put people's health and welfare at jeopardy. So this is a real big issue, and I hope you guys are watching. I am, once again, I'm not against anyone, folks. I'm not even against our president personally. I don't agree with him really on mostly anything, with the exception of a couple things. That's not true. A few things. Actually, about a handful of things. But I am not against him personally. I think that it's important that we change the tone of our politics, folks, because so many people cannot see how we can disagree without being disagreeable. And it's important for us to be able to have positions, argue those positions, discuss those positions, but still be agreeable in certain spaces and places. Now, I'm not suggesting that civility equals neutrality. What does that mean? That means that neutrality means that you have no position on anything. You kind of go with the wind. I'm not saying that we've got to be neutral in order to be civil. I'm saying that we have to be civil in order to be effective. And that's a very key distinction. So having said all that, that's what's going on now. Columbus and Indigenous Day. I want to talk about that for a second also. Wow, what an amazing time that we're living in this country where we are seeing the end to, Columbus Day and what that means. And, I'm sorry, my camera's all jacked up, guys. Okay, I'm sorry, I just turned my comments on. So I'm so sorry. Okay, so I know you guys are laughing at me. You were laughing at me, Shalala. John was laughing at me. Melissa was laughing at me. Hey, you guys, it's probably pretty entertaining for a political commentary video. So I really I really had, that was not like, let me stage a leg cramp in the middle of the commentary. I had a leg cramp in the middle of the commentary. So, yeah. Thank you, Dave Grazinia. Yes, I will. Yes, you do the stinky leg and the political commentary in one take. Miranda K, I'm doing just fine. Jonathan, I will drink Gatorade. Thank you guys so much. That is so funny. But Indigenous Peoples Day, folks, this is crazy. Now here, when I talk about civility, I have come up with a compromise, people. here is the compromise, right? So some people are upset because they're getting rid of the statues of Columbus and they're not celebrating Columbus Day. They're moving it to Indigenous People Day. Primarily the people who are upset are Italian Americans. I have a compromise, ladies and gentlemen. Please tell your legislators and tell everyone what we ought to be doing. I think here's what we got to do. Why don't we create a situation where we celebrate Indigenous people on one day and we celebrate Italian Americans as a whole on another day and be done with it? And maybe we don't necessarily have to celebrate Christopher Columbus, but we can celebrate the contributions of Italian Americans, and there we go. And now we're done and everyone is happy, right? Because now, unless those who are just diehard, oh, I got to be about Columbus, but why don't we just, no, I did not, Michael Crawford, read the White House proclamation. I refuse to. Okay, I didn't want to get upset today. I mean, I'll read it later. I did not want those words to take over. I know how the president feels about this already. I really don't want to read it. I just don't. I'm not going to read the White House proclamation about Columbus Day. I think once again, whereas myself and other people that I know who use our small platforms to try to invoke civility, I think unfortunately our president does not. And to me, that disqualifies someone from leadership when you don't want to do that. And so for me, if I thought it was sensible, if I thought that it was going to be something that tried to bring the best of the country out and say, hey, well, let's look at compromise. Let's figure out a way to celebrate the heritage of Italian Americans and also Indigenous people at the same time. Let's do both of those. Let's move forward, right? That's not what's going to happen, folks. I know already, so I don't really even want to see it. So anyway, the point is, guys, is that this is a new time, a new day, a new era. And America, you know, guys, I'd be very frank with you. You cannot build a nation on the deaths, if you will, of millions of people of Native American descent. Millions of people. We literally have built our cities on their graves and not expect there to be some discomfort, disagreement, some blowback, some challenges, some reckoning that's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you this, we can either willingly go forward and say, hey, we're going to do right by the history of Native Americans in this country and not, you know, get offended when we don't want to mock them, sports teams or blah, 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 blah. Or we can continue to live with this hanging over our head. And ladies and gentlemen, eventually, all of this anger, all of this angst, all of this injustice is going to bubble over and it'll ultimately tear this country apart. I'm all about building on the right foundation. Yes, America has been built on a broken foundation partially, a good foundation in principle, a broken foundation in practice. But if we don't deal with these issues, we'll never be able to go forward. Whenever you see a child acting up, any situation, the first thing you do as an adult, if you work with children, is not punish them, but ask the question why. Yes, you may need to punish them, but there are reasons why people do things in our society when they are in situations where they have faced historic injustice and marginalization. We have to begin to get to the root of these problems so that we can fix them long term, not short term. So having said all that, Indigenous People Day, guys, I'm telling you, this is some folks really upset in Chicago, particularly around this question of Columbus Day and what's going to happen. And so I think it's progress, folks. I really, really do. And I think that we have in this country have to embrace the totality of this diversity. And so, yes, I think there is a way to compromise on this. I think there's a way to compromise on a bunch of issues, folks. I really, really do. It doesn't mean that you get rid of conviction, but I think that there are ways to do that. So having said all of that, ladies and gentlemen, it is a really, really interesting day. I think it is critical that we fight for what we believe in and we fight for justice in the society, but it doesn't mean that we have to be given to the rancor and the anger and the vitriol and the rage and the hatred of the time. We have to be better than that. And so that's always my message to us. I hope that is helpful to you. I think this Supreme Court piece is going to be significant. And I am concerned not only about the Obamacare piece, I'm concerned about the Second Amendment piece and some other stuff. I'm concerned about the attacks on her personal character and religion, but I'm also concerned that, whatever happens in this Supreme Court situation, that our system will be so tilted in certain ways, right? I mean, the Democrats, if they win the Senate, okay, are going to rightfully try to stick it to the president if he wins re-election, because there's a balance of power. The Republicans would have the Supreme Court. The Democrats have the Senate and the House. If President Trump wins, he'll have the presidency. And in politics, guys, I think that you use your power as you need to. Civility is important, but in positions of power, you do what you have to do. And so I wish we had a different tone. I wish that we had a different spirit and we could play the game in a way that made sense. Obviously, it's not the time that we're in. So what do? We push forward, we vote, and we engage. And I hope that all of you guys are going to head out this November 3rd or before and get it done. Remember, votesmart.org, ontheissues.org, ballotready.org. There's also some judicial sites that you can look at if you want. I'll put them in the chat box for you. Have a great day. Susan says, drink pickle juice, knocks it right out. Thank you, Susan. I will stretch. That's the weirdest video. This is the weirdest video ever. Have a great day, folks. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.